Hey guys, welcome back with the On The Grid podcast. With this week, me becoming a dad, Gundam Evolution, and a lot of other mod related news. We hope you enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Game Grid with me, Armando, and of course, George.
Hello there.
And let's start off with what he did this week.
Well, I posted a review this week of Horizon Forbidden West.
I saw, yeah.
And I'm really happy with it today. And after that, I just moved on to the next review. And now I'm playing Cyberpunk 2077 for the next gen, for the PlayStation 5. Yeah. So now I'm reviewing that, and we're gonna keep going, and hoping it will keep getting better, the reviews.
Yeah, well, I was of course away because I got another child that was born.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I haven't been I've been looking at too many news and what was uploaded, and then I suddenly saw your review coming online. And then a couple of days later, I was like, oh, shit, he recorded something. So I went back to it, I think, a couple of days ago. And I was checking it out. I was, this looks good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very, very happy with it.
Yeah, it looks good. It's an overall good overview of the game. And yeah, of course, I am looking forward to seeing more reviews. But this was a really nice beginning.
Thank you very much, man.
Yeah, no problem.
But how was your week? Because you had a very special week, of course.
Yeah, my week was kind of hectic. So originally we were going to record the next episode last week, of course, on our standard day. And I was sending him messages like, okay, we can record tomorrow. And these are the subjects that we want to talk about. And it was funny because literally a couple of hours later, my wife, her water broke.
Yeah.
So I thought like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? So this happened during the evening. So at night, we went to the hospital and there everything happened. So he stayed there all night long.
Yeah.
And now we're a week further with almost 8 or 9 days with bad sleep. And actually this night was actually a good night, so I'm really well slept this day. Well rested, yeah, indeed. So I'm good to go actually. Yeah, my son Francis Gerald was born, and I'm looking forward to see him playing games, of course, as well. Yes. George gave us a little jumper suit, which has like a future gamer in the making.
Yes, a gamer like my dad. So actually, I was looking for one with an Xbox controller on it, but it only had the PlayStation controller. So,
but he was fine with that.
But I was fine with that. His uncle George will teach him well. Teach him the ways of the PlayStation.
So yeah, it was a strange week. We still want to talk about the items that we were that we wanted to talk about last week, and I would probably suggest by starting it.
Starting it.
Yeah, starting it.
So we start with the PlayStation had a new event where they showed off a few new games. Wasn't that interesting, but I really wanted to talk about one game in particular, and that was Gundam Evolution. And especially because many people might not know this, but Armando was a huge Gundam fan. Is a huge Gundam fan. So I really wanted to know what you think about it, because I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah, for people that don't really know, in this room, for instance, there's already a big sort of artwork of a Gundam, and I also have it downstairs, and I also built...
In his living room.
In my living room, yeah. I also built these little Gundam figures, and of course the series, and it's something that I grew up with together with George as well. Yeah. And from that moment on, I started collecting some Gundam things. I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, Pool and Bear also had like a special page for Gundam related clothing that they were selling. So that's
pretty cool.
So of course I also bought something there. And George came with this news, and I started looking at the trailers, the first reviews, and of course, let's just start with the beginning. Gundam games aren't fantastic, or they aren't great. If you look at Super Nintendo, there was a funny game which was sort of like let's just call it a sort of Street Fighter for Gundam. And then later on in the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2, they started with these 3D games that you're walking around big, sort of places, and you have to take over officers or do specific missions. And then a couple of years later, they also released a sort of Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah, Dynasty Warriors Gundam. It was actually pretty fun.
So that's funny because we are also big Dynasty Warrior fans.
Not the last Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah, that's
the good old times.
We're not talking about the
PlayStation 2 era Dynasty Warrior. That was our time.
Yeah, so. and I played a couple on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox as well, but the last one is just awful. It's just plain old awful. And they also make these themed Dynasty Warriors. So one of them is Gundam and the other one is Zelda. And they are actually really fun. So when they released this game, which is a first-person shooter, I was kind of surprised. But I, of course, was interested in what they were going to bring to the table. And, at first glance, I told George, this looks like an Unreal Engine game. So the
like most games.
Yeah, so the trailer just ended and you saw the big Unreal Engine logo. So that's always a good thing because that at least makes the graphics a lot better than they were from the last Gundam games if you played one or a few of them. And for me, it feels like a sort of Unreal Tournament meets Halo.
Yeah.
And... of course, with Gundam, for some reason, explosions always look kind of fake. But I'm actually looking forward to play this game.
Yeah, it looked pretty well. And I think one of the things is you have to set your expectations because that IP is not going to get a AAA game release. And
no.
but for what it looked like, I was like, oh man, this actually looked pretty good and a lot of fun. And like you said, that kind of Halo feeling you got with it. So, I really hope they have some more... more characters and more ways to differentiate the Gundams, like special moves, like if I'm my Gundam wing, if I got the heavy arms, I want to move that I can push a button and just go all out.
So a sort of slow move that you're standing steady and then you start firing your
like auto
your
missiles,
guns, your rockets and everything. Yeah.
So I want something like that, like every Gundam having something special, and I'm looking forward to actually playing this one. So
it's funny to see. They also they're going to release this game for PlayStation and Xbox, so that's nice for the people that own different consoles.
Yeah.
And overall, I'm just curious what they're gonna bring. Especially what you also said, like the characters, because they showed off a couple of characters, of course, the more famous and standard ones. But I'm also curious what other characters from other anime Gundam series they're going to show. Because there are so many of these Gundams. And of course, that's also what makes it hard, because every Gundam has something special, and you don't want to have a Gundam which is hugely overpowered. Yeah. So it's just really nice to see which Gundams they are going to bring into this game.
Yeah, and I kind of hope they make it like free to play, because like you said, there are many Gundams, so it's a good way to have some monetization. Like, we're gonna release some new Gundams here and there, and if I have to pay $60 for this game, I'm not buying DLC. But if it's free, I'm like, okay, I'll buy my favorite Gundams if they're not there yet.
Yeah, but I'm also curious because if you look at the game, it's normally, if you know Gundam series, you're in the woods, you're in some kind of city, and stuff breaks because Gundams are huge ass mech warrior robots, which are controlled by human beings. And it's like far away into the future, and people don't use tanks or drones anymore, but they use big robotic mechs to fight with each other. And this looks like it's in some kind of arena where you fight with each other. So I'm not really sure if they're going to bring something like a big storyline to the table.
No, I don't.
So if this is all multiplayer, then I would also suggest them doing something like
I'm not even expecting a story. I mean, like, I think the money went into the Gundams and like everything else, like the arenas, and so you don't have to pay too much attention to it. Just enjoy the gameplay.
So in short, I would probably suggest don't make too many stories, because most of the time these stories in these games, they just suck. And George and I are looking, and this is sort of a moment for me and Bandai to bond with each other. We are looking for an MMO, or a sort of MMO / first person shooter, but I want to grow up as a soldier, for instance, or as a rebel on a specific planet or moon or Mars, and then start up a faction with other rebels, and then starting a fight with, first of all, just normal mobile suits, and then later on, when we get richer, we can build or find a Gundam somewhere, and then have a story which can take for months or years that you just... that would be freaking fantastic. You should
kind of have a mix between Zone of the Enders and Metal Gear Solid, so that you not only play in the Gundam, but also play as
outside of the Gundam,
out of your soldier, and have a sort more of a Metal Gear Solid vibe.
Yeah,
like you sneak around, you get around, and that's a good way to tell the story, because you can get to learn more characters instead of just sitting in your mobile seat and making a phone call. So
go to shops, buy certain items, just live your life like a normal person, and then your second life is sort of, or you're just a soldier, which is also possible, and then you jump into this mobile suit and you start these fights.
So basically everything Cyberpunk 2077 promised to be, only done in a Gundam style. That's what we would like. I know, Bandai, you're not known for that, but maybe...
Ask around if you can find developers who want to help. So this is that specific moment where I was looking for, that you just, for instance, let one part being made by CD Projekt Red, and then the other part is being made by BioWare, and then this nice combination of good storyline and fantastic game development, and then together make this glorious world where people can enjoy themselves.
And then there was peace on Earth, and nobody would ever fight again.
And then the game ends and it starts all over again.
So I think that's so beautiful. But if you want to give us the IP and the game, we can do it for you.
It's also an option. Yeah.
Let us do it. Let us do it. We will make it right. We can't program or anything, but we'll make sure the vision will come true.
So any other games on that sort of presentation?
Not really ones worth mentioning. There were a few more, but it was all kind of the very Japanese oriented, like those RPGs, and it was fine. And like, we're recording this on Thursday, and tonight they're gonna have another presentation in which they're gonna reveal the Hogwarts game, and they're gonna have 50 minutes of gameplay. So we're gonna talk about that next week. So
and it's specifically, if we talk about Harry Potter games, I'm expecting the same thing as what I just explained to you about Gundam. I want to be a young wizard going to school, living my life there, and then slowly starting to learn more moves, choosing a faction of different wizards together, like Slytherin, Hufflepuff. And then started being either evil or good, or at least have some story, so they can create missions all the time, and you come back to this thing, and it's freaking addictive, and everybody wants to play that stuff. I never understand why they don't make something like this.
I think they all kind of follow the World of Warcraft example, and they don't really, especially in the MMO space, don't really experiment with that kind of stuff. Because I would think if it was a little less action oriented and more like your day-to-day life, like having to actually learn a spell, like doing a button combination, and you use that, and it gets upgraded the more classes you follow, and once you get your diploma, you will move on. And especially I think, especially for Harry Potter, I think having the choice between good and evil, they could really do some fun things with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't really know what to expect from this game. Like, I've seen the trailer, but I'm kind of like, what's it gonna be? So I'm really looking forward to watching it.
I enjoyed a lot of Harry Potter games back in the day. I played them on, I think, the PSX and the PlayStation 2, and those were really fun. And they were also not really that like that advanced in what you could do, but the storyline itself was nice, and of course it related to the movies, and that's nice. But now we're further. The movies ended. Of course, they're still busy with the Fantastic Beast franchise, and yeah, I think it's the same like Star Wars. You know, it never ends. You can always make new games. You can always make new movies.
Let the past die.
Wait a second. Don't involve Disney, please. Don't do it, because then...
Oh, Harry Potter's gonna be Disney owned one day. I mean...
I don't hope so.
Well,
I just hope it will stay at the same place it will be at the moment.
It's with Warner Brothers now, so I don't think there's a big chance. If Disney buys Warner Brothers, that would mean they will also have DC, like Superman and Batman and everything. I won't think that was gonna happen. I mean, there must be some law against it.
Yeah, so that would be nice, because we would just like to have games that are being created that are never being created before. And I'm not looking for the second EA that just poops out games and then...
But to give Warner Bros. Some credit, they do have a good track record with the Batman Arkham series. Like, those were
the games are good.
They were amazing and really good games and really story heavy. So I'm kind of hoping like they are gonna go for that quality again. And yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan, but I would love to jump into that world and make some choices, screw some people over, and
especially that last part,
and become the one that shouldn't be named. That's like Voldemort's thing. Yeah. I would be that kind of character.
Yeah. So, any other mentionable games?
Do you have some good news about? Well,
some mod-related news.
Do you have some mod-related news?
Of course, we have some mod-related news. So we're going to the next part, mod-related news. Okay, so in this week, mod-related news, we talk about the Nvidia leaks. And of course, I know they aren't really mod-related, but it's a leak, hackers, mods. Yeah. It comes together closely.
You're kind of shoving it in.
Yeah, I'm kind of shoving this into the whole mod-related... news items. So what's important about the Nvidia leaks is that the Nvidia leaks, Nvidia made the processor for the Nintendo Switch, which is an important thing, because in the last generations they used this completely different infrastructure for their game consoles, and this time they used the ARM processors. And there is a big chance that Nvidia is going to create the second processor for the next Nintendo Switch, or whatever this console is being called. And in these leaks, they found specific references to a sort of Switch 2, or some call it the Switch Pro. I don't really like to call it a Switch Pro, because we're getting close to probably a new release. The original Switch was released, I think, in 2016, if I'm not forgetting.
I'll search it and you'll see it right now.
Yeah, and that means that we're already on the 6th year, which means that most of the time during the 7th, 6th year, they start releasing a new console, or release new information about the new console. And we already talked about this in a couple of episodes back, I believe, that we're talking about when Mario Kart was released. They're starting to release now these new maps until the end of 2023. And I already said that this is not a coincidence, because they will probably release a new Nintendo console at the end of 2003. This is what I expect, at least. So it's pretty huge that Nvidia has this leaked information about the next processor. And what's important about this, that you understand what this chip could do for a next-gen Nintendo console. They'll probably choose for a sort of Switch-like architecture, because it's logical that people like taking their console with them, putting them into docks, and being able to just play on big TVs or get them anywhere they want.
Especially since they're not competing with PlayStation and Nintendo. With the Nintendo Switch, they really had their own kind of user base. So I don't think it's a wise strategy for them to change that up and splitting that group up in handheld and a console. I think this is for them the way to go.
And of course, if we look at the Nintendo Switch, then you see that they are struggling on the graphical part of the console, because if you enter more to the details of the Nintendo Switch, then originally the content of the Switch is being broadcast into 720p, which is not even HD. And if you put this Switch into its docking system, it's being sort of like boosted into showing you a 1080p image. And if you understand that most recent consoles all either view 4K, then it's several resolutions underneath this. So
what is the QLED version of them? Is that 1080p or is
you
that
mean the
4K?
OLED version?
Or the OLED version?
Still the same.
Oh.
Yeah, because they aren't able to change everything up completely. Like, for instance, like Xbox does this with different consoles.
Yeah, because they also have to then change their games, of course.
Yeah.
For the
So it's more like image-wise enjoying more of a better screen, a bigger screen. That was the whole deal with the OLED version. And now we read something about ray tracing, which is pretty cool for Nintendo, because Nintendo was always pretty late to the party. If you look at older consoles,
Mario Party.
yeah, that as well. If we look back at their last consoles, it was always a problem connecting it either digitally. So HDMI took them really long to release a console with HDMI. Digital audio, Dolby systems are like, for instance, in Europe we have used SCART cables. They almost always used exclusively AV. So it's nice to see something of a big evolution into the next gen thing, that we're going to get ray tracing, that we're going to get better resolutions, the things that the Switch is having problems with right now. So if you look, for instance, at the last Pokemon games, you really start seeing that there is no more graphical power in this Switch other than the things that they have right now.
Yeah, you really see the limitations they have right now.
So, yeah, of course, we'd like to see more leaks or more information of Nintendo. It will probably take a while. Nintendo isn't really the sort of player that's going to suddenly release something and then release a console a year later. So I'm expecting them at least to take in half a year before release, dropping some trailers for 8 or 9 months. And then later on we'll probably see...
Yeah, and I think if they're gonna show something this year, probably being during Summer Game Fest, they'll probably release a Nintendo Direct. And I think if you don't see this summer, I think next summer during the Game Fest, you'll probably see something about it. Summer. But I think it's really time for them to upgrade, especially with the new consoles. Like the third party, they kind of gonna get left behind again.
Yeah, they're really struggling with it. So, for instance, we talked about this with The Witcher. Because I started playing The Witcher on the Nintendo Switch, which was funny because I also own it for the Xbox and the PlayStation. But
I didn't finish one of them.
I didn't finish one of them.
Did you finish the beginning?
I actually started playing The Witcher on the Xbox. I sent him a message about this, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. Started playing, so...
Yeah. This is a story for later. But the thing is with The Witcher, for instance, is they really struggle to bring The Witcher to the Nintendo Switch. And if they launch something which is more universal in sort of graphics, like at least 1080p or at least 2K, and having some actual graphical power to be able, for instance, to use ray tracing, then it would be way easier to port games from recent consoles to a console like this. Yeah. If it's something relatable to, for instance, a PlayStation 4 Pro or an Xbox One X, then you probably won't have any issues to port games.
Well, and I kind of wonder what the architecture of the Switch, like notoriously the PlayStation and the Xbox suddenly went more the PC route, like hardware stuff.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they will go the same route to make third parties more easy for them.
Yeah, well, if you know Nintendo, they don't really need these titles. It's, of course, funny that they release a couple of these titles. But I think Nintendo is mostly running their franchise on their own games and a couple of famous games running on Nintendo.
Of course, they have their standard IPs like Mario, Zelda, and the same games you get every year. But it would be nice, especially with the portability factor, if you have some more third-party support.
Yeah.
So I hope they'll focus on that on the next console.
Yeah, also it depends, of course, what other big companies like Sony and Microsoft do with buying different game developers. But it would be a more easy choice if you would be able to play all the games on all the consoles again, because you can play Mario or Zelda on a PlayStation or an Xbox. So if you want a console which is compatible with games like this, and also a couple of, for instance, Call of Duty, then it would be way easier for people to choose for a Nintendo instead of an Xbox or a PlayStation. I know it's not their core user base, but if people grow up with a console, it would be way easier to buy another Nintendo.
Yeah, I think so too, and especially with they're working together with Xbox a lot more for games and it's stuff like that. So if you could also get that cross-play in there, it would always be the second console for people, if it might not be their first.
Yeah.
So I think for their market share, it would be really great.
Yeah. And a really important thing, this is also a switch to the next news item.
Segue.
Yeah. Nintendo, because they don't really chase after graphics and new technology, they're always a bit late to the party when it comes to hardware. So for instance, we look back at the Nintendo Switch, they used a really old processor, a really old Nvidia processor. And the fact that they already chose a processor way in advance before they're releasing a console would probably mean they're again a little late to the party, because the chip that they're going to release it with is already old now.
Yeah.
If you look at it right now. So this means that if they're going to release it at the end of 2023, this is actually 2024 then we're already 2 years further from now. And then I'm just curious what happens. So what the problem is with graphics and chips like this, the Steam Deck, they just released the Steam Deck, which is a fantastic little console. It looks a little bit Switch-like. It's only more rated for adults. But because it's so powerful, it's being able to emulate a Nintendo Switch.
Oh,
and this is bad news.
Cool.
Yeah, this is bad news for Nintendo. Now, it doesn't run perfectly at the moment, but that doesn't really have anything to do with the hardware. They're just not far enough to run it perfectly on the deck.
So basically they just have to fix some bugs in order to get it working.
I already saw a couple of games running. We're not going to show too much because Nintendo is really, really like a pit bull on these videos, and they're either taking them down or anything else. So we're not showing any images. Yeah, indeed. Nintendo is really bitch about these things. But it shows you how far Nintendo is away when it comes to hardware-related things. If you're literally able to emulate a game console on a newer game console and being able to play all these games, you're late to the party.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing with your phone. Like, you can play GBA games on it or Game Boy games. Like, after that, like, you're never touching that again. Of course, you're not supposed to do that. But let's be honest, like, everybody wants their nostalgia, especially with the Nintendo Switch, which runs on nostalgia, like with those games. I mean,
and it's a really nice console. So if you don't have to buy it, and you could just buy a deck and just play it there. Yeah. Why would you not buy a Steam device then and just play your games there?
And is it a hard thing to do? Like, do you really have to know?
There's really simple tutorials on YouTube.
Okay. So
like how to really basically start and play the first couple of games.
Oh, so basically I could do it, like.
Absolutely.
Oh well, that's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. So that was all the Nintendo related news. Well, not quite actually, because there's one user which I also follow on Twitter, and I have to quote it to be able to call his name. But Web HDX is a guy that I'm following on Twitter. He's already busy for a couple of months right now to release a really nice mod for the GameCube. Yeah. So for people that modded their GameCubes, we know that there is an ODE for it, so you can play your games off an SD card. There is an HD mod, which gives you the possibility to play the games with an with the HDMI cable. But some people, like I of course, they like to play their games either on CD or on an ODE. And the cool thing about the GameCube is the GameCube came with a lot of connections on the not the back of the console, but the, how do you call it? Underneath the console. So underneath the console, you could connect a Game Boy Advance loader, which actually had a Game Boy Advance in it. So if you modify your GameCube, then you're also able to play your Game Boy Advance and Game Boy games on HD.
Yeah.
There was a specific port which was used for some other mods. And there was this port that you could connect your Ethernet sort of broadband adapter to. Nobody really used these adapters because nowadays they're really expensive and you don't really use them that much other than, I think, Phantasy Star Online.
Yeah.
And this guy developed a mod which you could connect into this port and then connect an M2 SSD to it. And this is the ODE. So first of all, it's way more reliable than an SD card. It's way more faster than an SD card. And you could still play your games off either a CD and also off this SSD. Yeah. So this is a really cool mod. And he created a couple of them, and we're just looking forward to the product being actually released so we can use it. And of course, I'm going to buy it and review the mod then as well.
Yeah.
Because we still saved up a couple of mods for the GameCube to show the complete modification of the GameCube. So that's a nice thing for Nintendo.
And does he have a release window from when it's gonna get released, that mod? Or?
Well, technically he's almost done.
Yeah.
But because of the chip shortages, it's a little problematic to...
A lot of things going on in the world right now, so...
Yeah. So in the last episode, for instance, I talked about the MVS motherboard. I ordered one, it got cancelled. All these mods are being so expensive at the moment, or harder to get at the moment. So that's a little bit of a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's nice. And we're kind of figuring out for what we can do in the mod, making mod videos. So
yeah,
we're really working on it. So it will come.
Yeah. One of the other things which I found was really cool is the PlayStation Vita is a really big scene. And a lot of people still own PS Vitas, and there's still being games released for the PS Vita.
Yes.
And one thing which I found was freaking cool, which is, again, Nintendo related, is that they started running PlayStation Vita software off the Nintendo or on the Nintendo Switch. So they're not quite there yet. There are still a couple of things they need to do. So I think they have to build the shader support. And if the shader support is being built, it literally means that we could play PlayStation Vita games on a Nintendo Switch. And this is cool because you have a bigger screen on the Nintendo Switch. You, of course, have the OLED model, and the original Vita also had an OLED model. But you could just play so many cool games. PlayStation released a lot of cool titles for the PlayStation Vita. And the mod scene is really big on the PlayStation Vita. So being able to have the whole library would be really nice.
But does that mean that I can play my PlayStation Vita games on my Switch?
Yeah.
So can I play my PlayStation Vita games on my Steam Deck through my Switch?
It would be possible, yeah.
Because then you only have to buy a Steam Deck and you have a Switch and a PS Vita and then the Steam, of course. So you'll have the ultimate handheld console.
I'm expecting this to take a lot of time. They would probably be able to run PlayStation Vita games directly off a Steam Deck.
Yeah.
I'm not really seeing this thing that they would start playing PlayStation Vita out of Nintendo Switch emulator, which sounds a little bit strange, which it is.
Yeah.
And this is no emulation. So to be perfectly understandable, a PlayStation Vita also runs on ARM structure, just like the Nintendo Switch. The only difference is that the Nintendo Switch runs at 64 bits and the PlayStation Vita at 32. But because the Nintendo Switch is being able to run legacy mode, they can start running 32-bit applications as well. There's, of course, a different graphical chipset in the Nintendo Switch, but this is literally what they're working on right now. So if that stuff works, it can literally natively run PlayStation Vita software and games off a Nintendo Switch. So that's something that's really something I'm looking for, and I'm going to mod really soon if it's being completely released. And then it's nice to just play it on the Vita and then connect it into your dock and play the games on the big screen.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
So that's one of the last items. The last item that I want to get to is that a couple of episodes ago I was mentioning about the Xbox kernels with bigger hard drives, and now all kinds of teams are releasing different kernels. I already saw kernels, I think, with 16 terabytes of hard drive space.
Really quick, what's a kernel for people who don't know?
Yeah, so the kernel is if you run a piece of software like more deeply into the console. A kernel tells specific things, what a console's abilities or things that the console understands. So originally the Xbox, the first original Xbox was limited to 2 terabytes of hard drive space. And with this update, it's able to play either 8 terabytes or 16 terabytes.
So it's a way to expand your storage.
Yeah, it's a way to expand your storage. And for people that use the original Xbox, a lot of things were installed on the original hard drive.
Yeah.
And 2 terabytes back in the day was a lot. And now if you look at the complete library, yeah, you need at least, I think, 6 terabytes or something. So, and being able to put an 8 terabyte drive in there and then just have all the emulators, all the games, then you need a really big hard drive. So, yeah, it's good to see that these are not fake items anymore, but they're actually releasing this software. And then, we can have an Xbox completely...
with all the games
games on it, yeah. And that's cool because then you are still able to play your CD drive, but also having the option to play everything off your hard drive.
Yeah, so, and it's better for the console if you play it off your hard drive, right? So
yeah,
because
of course.
It won't break and it go along.
It doesn't break more easily, of course, because the CD players are always sort of, a point where consoles die quicker. So PlayStation 2 and Dreamcast and GameCube were all consoles that were known for having CD lasers to break down. And these sort of mods make it more easier to repair your console and also maintain it longer.
Man, that's
time.
Amazing. And preserve the games, which is actually pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was all the mod-related news. Are there any other news items you want to talk about?
No, I don't really have anything new to say. All I want to say is go watch the review.
Yeah. I would also suggest you to watch the review. It's really nice to see something more about Horizon, the Forbidden West, and to see what this whole game brings, of course, and of course the next episode, this one and the one for next week. So we hope you enjoyed watching this episode, and we'll hope to see you next week again. Thanks for watching.
Peace.
Bye. This week on the On the Grid podcast. This week on the On the Grid podcast. Welcome to the On the Grid podcast. With this week, me becoming a father again. We're talking about the next. Eentje
extra hebben dan 3, 2, 1, go.
Hey guys, welcome to the On the Grid podcast. With this week, me becoming a dad again. The next first-person Gundam game, and we're talking about a lot of other game-related Gundam mods, shit news, Nintendo, Nvidia, whatever the fuck we're talking about. Hey guys, welcome back with another On The Grid podcast. Nee, wacht even. Wacht. Hey guys, welcome back with another On The Grid podcast. With me becoming a dad again, another first-person shooter game, this time Gundam, and a lot of other mod-related news. We hope you enjoy.